Nickeil Alexander-Walker is one of the most valuable role players in the league. Now that was true last season when he was a crucial cog in Minnesota's Western Conference Finals team, but it's even more true this season where he has taken his game to a whole new level. Now obviously a role player, even a top tier one like Alexander Walker, isn't going to have the same high usage impact as star level contributors like Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert for this Timberwolves team, but his impact is enormous for the Wolves as a two-way connector who dominates in one of the most valuable archetypes in the league. Even with the offensive improvements we've seen from Alexander Walker this season, he's always going to earn his money defensively. For the past 2 years, he's been one of the best guard defenders in basketball, capable of not only wrecking offenses with his on-ball defense, but boosting Minnesota's overall defense with his ability to thrive in team defensive situations. Statistically, he's been crazy impactful defensively this season. Minnesota hold a 103.2 defensive rating when Alexander Walker is on the floor, but that number jumps up to 111.5 when he's off the floor, giving him that 8.3 points per 100 possessions differential that ranks him in the 92nd percentile for all players in the association. The first branch of his defensive tree is the ability to navigate through screens. That's kind of the chief responsibility for every point of attack defender, and he's one of the best around. His ability to get through these gaps between the ball and the screener make him a nightmare for scorers to shake off. He's like a rash that they just can't get rid of. You see here he slides under the first screen when Fox is too deep to shoot, and then gets skinny over the screen to stick on Fox's hip, and he always has the wherewithal to peel off and make rotations out of the pick and roll to block up other scoring options. Screens are still the easiest way for a ball handler to get into a rhythm offensively, and an elite screen navigator is the best way to disrupt that rhythm. Whether it's on-ball screens or off-ball screens, Alexander Walker is a constant disruptor, an absolute workhorse, and a player with such awesome technique to get through those screens. That's the kind of player who can slot into a defensive-minded team like Minnesota, and not just fit in, but actually enhance everything they're trying to do. And really the whole point here is just to stay connected. And even if he's not scrapping through screens, shadowing his man and staying connected is probably Alexander Walker's best defensive trait. I think a lot of defenders are usually in a pretty bad position when they get stuck on an offensive player's hip like this, but there's a pretty cool blend of lateral movement, strength, and the ability to match opposing players stride for stride that makes Alexander Walker stick to his man like glue and then swivel back in front to contest shots or poke at the ball. It's almost like he baits his man into thinking they've got the advantage with him pinned on their hip and then flips it to create his own defensive advantage with those aforementioned traits. When a player can both get through screens and be an unshakable menace in one-on-one defense, you get one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. Even when you feel like he's beaten off the drive like he is here, he somehow manages to snatch the ball with those quick hands and that special defensive awareness. And I think where you really see and feel that awareness is when he's operating more in a team defensive construct. You need ISO and pick and roll defenders like Alexander Walker in the modern game, but it's really hard to build a legit defense without expert rotators and smart team defenders as well. He's definitely got that in his bag of defensive tricks. Sometimes it's just something as simple as being able to recognize that his teammate has given the offense an advantage by overcommitting on this head fake and then selling out to rotate over and completely stifle the jumper with a strong contest. Again, on this next possession, he realizes that McDaniels is beaten in the gap help and he springs into action to shut off that driving lane and force a turnover. At other times, great defense requires more than that. Here he's shifting over to block off the first drive, and then quickly floor mapping to see Reed rotating up to the ball, and he helps the helper by rotating to Reed's man to get a flying contest on that shot. When you combine these defensive traits, you get a possession like this where he gets over the screen, stays on the hip of his man on the drive, but then veers off to cover the roll man, and when he realizes that the only option left is the shooter, he sprints out to the perimeter, shuts down a catch and shoot chance, and smothers the eventual heave. These aren't flash in the pan examples. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is an every night, every possession type of defender, and when you watch his film, it's easy to see why Minnesota are so much better defensively when he's on the floor. What makes him so valuable in the modern game though, is that he's become super reliable as a low usage, high impact role player on the other side of the ball as well. When you look at his shot profile right away, you can see the efficiency leap that he's undergoing. He's making more shots at the rim at a higher clip and more shots from long range at a higher clip. Naturally, that's turning him into a more effective scorer on a per shot basis. Now with a 3-and-D player like Alexander Walker, it is an expectation that he's going to be able to drain standstill threes, and with that 40% clip last season, it's not like he hasn't been doing that before. Obviously, there's immense benefits from having a guy who can just hang out in the corners and capitalize on the gravity created by Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, or Rudy Gobert on the roll. But this season, we've definitely seen him upgrade his shooting arsenal by being able to move without the ball, relocate into open areas, or even come out of legit shooting set plays to find shots from beyond the arc. A reliable shooter becomes a capital S shooter when they start hunting space like he is here as he sprints off his man into the area of the floor where the defense isn't in order to find a quick catch and shoot jumper. We're seeing way more of that kind of thing from him this season, and it's super valuable. Again, this time he's setting the pin down screen and then he's flaring out of it into the corner to set his feet and fire away. This newfound shooting off of movement is allowing the Wolves to even dabble with putting him into genuine actions designed solely to get Alexander Walker shots from deep. Here they're running floppy action where he comes low to the baseline and then bounces off 2 screens to get into the corner and hoist that triple, and that's become something the Timberwolves are really getting more comfortable going to. Here on this next possession, he's the one setting the screen for Edwards to curl off, and then he's relocating out to the corner and providing Edwards with a passing read and a reliable outlet shooter. So what we're seeing this season is not only a deadly shooter who can make shots in a variety of ways, but we're also seeing a guy who can really make plays off the bounce. He's been miscast as a point guard at times this season, but when he's able to slot into his natural position off the ball, he can really do some fun things off the catch or on the second side. He's become way more effective at simply attacking closeouts and finishing around the rim off the catch, which is kind of a testament to how often teams are throwing defenders at him to try and prevent him making threes. But we saw earlier that those finishing numbers have gone way up, and it feels like now he's able to finish through or around rim protectors with way more volume and efficiency than he has done before. I also think he's become much more adept at reading defensive coverages and turning those downhill attacks into money for his teammates as well. He isn't a natural point guard, but he is really good at deciphering where the help is coming from and then finding the gaps in the defense to poke at, and that makes him a perfectly reasonable secondary creator who can punish teams for either sagging off him or overcommitting to him. So right now you've got a guy who defends at an all defense level, a guy who knocks down threes in a bunch of different ways at a ridiculously high clip, and a guy who can both finish at the rim or turn drives into points for his teammates. That's one of the most deadly role players in the league. The Timberwolves need to keep investing in Nickeil Alexander-Walker's playing time and eventually his contract, because he's a seriously important part of this Wolves team. Thanks again for watching Howls and Growls. Please subscribe for more.